There Are Things I Want You to Know About Stieg Larsson and Me, by Eva Gabrielsson and Marie-Françoise Colombani. Narrated by Cassandra Campbell. Copyright 2011 by Axe Sud. English translation copyright 2011 by Linda Cloverdale. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with 7 Stories Press and Eva Gabrielsson, care of Writers House, and was produced in the year 2011 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Foreword. Yes, there is a mystery behind the Millenium trilogy. And secrets, too. As in the parable of Plato's cave, Stieg Larsson's crime novels allow only a certain reality to appear, and the reality that remains hidden within them is rich in stories that open endlessly onto still more stories. The trilogy is filled with signs, some of which are drawn from everyday life, while others, strangely powerful, link Stieg Larsson and Eva Gabrielsson, his companion of 32 years, to worlds distinctly their own: science fiction, the Bible, Scandinavian mythology, espionage, the battle against right-wing extremism, the struggle for human rights. Only Eva Gabrielsson can shed an intimate light on the Millenium novels, which in her telling become much more than the crime fiction saga known throughout the world. The trilogy is an allegory of the individual's eternal fight for justice and morality, the values for which Stieg Larsson fought until the day he died. To Eva Gabrielsson, these books are the reflection of a shared life and love, but also the embodiment of terrible events. The first and most dramatic of these, of course, was the sudden loss of Stieg. Felled by a heart attack at the age of 50 soon after delivering his manuscripts to his publisher, Stieg never witnessed the immense success of his creation. And what happened next was sordid. Because domestic unions between unmarried, childless couples are not legally recognized in Sweden, Eva was deprived of all of her inheritance from her partner and for a time even feared she would be evicted from their small apartment, only half of which she owned. Another distressing development for Eva was the growth of a huge Stieg Larsson industry, the complete antithesis of everything he stood for. TV series, films, books by false friends, all kinds of rumors. The real Stieg Larsson, the militant, the feminist, the journalist, the autodidact of a vast and eclectic culture, gradually disappeared, leaving the blockbuster author alone in the spotlight. From beginning to end, Stieg's life was a true saga, and Eva, a major character in that intimate novel, has decided to give us a few keys to his roman à clef. This plain-spoken, straightforward woman, as loyal and idealistic as Stieg himself, does not make compromises. Those who know her know this well. Come what may, her friends can count on her, just as they could count on her companion. The rest have been left behind on the path of betrayal, as Stieg would have done. Today, Eva is fighting to obtain control over Larsson's literary estate. She is doing it for him, because he would have hated more than anything else to see his early writings, his articles against racism, his books about the far right, and his Millenium trilogy, milked for profits. If Eva's request is granted, she will clear up the mystery shrouding the 4th novel in the series, for she has followed its genesis closely, just as she did with the first 3 volumes. Those of us in love with the trilogy may therefore still hope one day to rejoin our heroes. And as for the enemies of Lisbeth Salander and Mikael Blomkvist, let them tremble, for this 4th book will be entitled The Vengeance of God. And they should know this: Eva, tempered in the fires of adversity, is poised to write the final words of their fate and lead a dance on their graves. Marie-Françoise Colombani. Speaking of coffee. People often ask me if the Swedish drink as much coffee as the characters do in the Millennium trilogy. Well, we drink a lot of it indeed, given that Finland is the only country in the world that consumes more coffee than we do. And if I had to single out just one thing in common between Stieg Larsson and Mikael Blomkvist, it would surely be their impressive daily quota of coffee. Stieg and I shared this addiction, which dates from our childhood. Stieg's grandmother began giving him coffee openly when he was 5, when children ordinarily drink milk. My grandmother did the same with me, but more discreetly, since my mother was still around. Coffee was, for both of us, an extraordinary remedy for all kinds of misfortunes, great or small. Synonymous with intimacy, conviviality, hospitality, it accompanied our moments of happiness as well as our long conversations with each other or friends. In the course of our 32 years together, I think we were largely responsible for the Swedish coffee industry's handsome profits. Although we experimented with every possible way of preparing the brew, we always fell back on percolated coffee. In our home, a coffee pot sat permanently on the stove. These days, I don't fix coffee for myself anymore. It's silly to fill only half a coffee pot. Besides, the empty half means that Stieg will never again look at me over the rim of his cup, his eyes twinkling with curiosity, like a child who's just been given a present. Never again will I hear him say, "So, tell me, what did you do today? What new things have you discovered?" In the Millennium trilogy, Lisbeth Salander sometimes breaks off a discussion with Mikael Blomkvist by saying, "I'll think about it." The first time I read that, I burst out laughing. Whenever Stieg and I reached an impasse during a serious argument because I wouldn't adopt his point of view, I always wound up saying those same words. They meant that it was time to move on to a more neutral and pleasant conversation. So at this signal, one of us would immediately get up to go make a pot of coffee, and we'd be friends again. Nowadays, I never drink coffee at home by myself. I've switched to tea. This book, I wish I hadn't had to write it. It talks about Stieg and our life together, but also about my life without him. A heart attack took him from me on November 9th, 2004. An accursed day for me, and for many others in the past as well, to whom it brought tremendous tragedy. I am thinking of November 9th, 1938, Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, when the Nazis drew one step closer to the final solution by attacking their Jewish fellow citizens. Stieg always commemorated Kristallnacht by participating in public events. On that evening of November 9th, 2004, he was to have given a lecture at the headquarters of the ABF, Arbetarnas Bildningsförbund, the Workers' Educational Association, in Stockholm. Because of my work as an architect, I was not with Stieg when he died, but in the province of Dalarna in central Sweden. Would it have made any difference if I had been there? I'll never know, obviously, but I like to believe so. Whenever we were together, that communion affected our lives profoundly. Millennium Stieg, the author of best-selling crime thrillers, was born in July 2005 with the publication of the first novel in his trilogy. Since then, there have been feature films and TV movies. And yet, the trilogy is only one episode in Stieg's journey through this world, and it certainly isn't his life's work. The Stieg of the Millennium industry doesn't interest me. The one I care about is my life partner and my ally in everything. The man I loved deeply, with whom I went through life for 32 years. An affectionate man, Generous, funny, enthusiastic, committed. The journalist, the feminist, the militant. The love of my life. When I lost him, a huge part of me was lost with him. That Stieg was born on August 15th, 1954. Early days. In The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the novel that opens the Millennium trilogy, Mikael Blomkvist discovers a photo taken during the Children's Day parade in Hedeby, the oldest neighborhood in the small town of Hedestad, on the day Harriet Vanger disappeared. Seeking information about that day to help him understand what might have frightened the teenager away, he hunts for the tourist couple who photographed the parade 40 years earlier. His research takes him into northern Sweden, first to Norrsa, then to Björsala in Västerbotten County. Why there? For most Swedes, those are God-forsaken places at the back of beyond. But Stieg knew them well. It was there that he went as a baby in 1955 to live with his maternal grandparents. His father and mother, Erland Larsson and Viviana Boström, were too young to bring him up properly, and they left to live 600 miles away in the south. In 1957 they moved again to Umeå, a small city 125 miles southeast of Norrsa. Writing about Norrsa and Björsala was Stieg's way of paying homage to the small community of people there who gave him the best moments of his youth, and a way of thanking them for the values they instilled in him. Stieg lived with his grandparents in a small wooden house on the edge of a forest. Their home had a kitchen and one other room without water, electricity, or an indoor toilet. This kind of house is typical of the Swedish countryside and its family farms, and in those days, when the next generation took over the farm, the old folks would retire to such a place. The walls of Stieg's grandparents' house were poorly insulated, and the joints between the planks were probably crammed with sawdust in the old style. The kitchen wood stove on which his grandmother cooked the meals was the only source of heat. In the winter, the temperature outside could drop to as low as -35 degrees Celsius, with, at most, 30 minutes of daylight, and Stieg used to ski cross-country to the village school in the moonlight. Prompted by his natural curiosity, he tirelessly explored the surrounding forests, lakes, and trails, hoping to meet other people and catch glimpses of animals, too. Life was tough where he lived, so it took plenty of ingenuity to survive. But such an environment breeds hardy individuals, self-reliant, resourceful, generous folks who can be counted on in a pinch. Like Stieg. According to Stieg, his maternal grandfather, Severin, was an anti-Nazi communist who was imprisoned in an internment camp during World War II. After the war, such militants were not exactly welcomed back into society. Even at the time, people didn't want to talk about this period in Swedish history, and what happened then is still not common knowledge today. In 1955, Severin quit his job in a factory and left Skelleftehamn, where Stieg was born, to move into that small wooden house with his wife and their baby grandson. To support his little family, Severin repaired bikes and engines and did odd jobs on the local farms. Stieg adored going hunting and fishing with him. At the beginning of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Mikael Blomkvist accepts an offer from Henrik Vanger, Harriet Vanger's uncle, to move into the guest house not far from Hedestad. It's the middle of winter, and he describes the ice roses that formed on the inside of the windows. They were the same ones that used to fascinate Stieg in his grandparents' home. Roses that grew from vapor in the family's breath and the water always boiling on the stove. He never forgot those magnificent visions, or the cold he could describe from personal experience. His childhood was a hard one, but it was full of joy and affection. In black and white family snapshots, A little boy smiles between two grown-ups.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?